Hey, do you teach yoga? Have you ever trained to lead yoga classes, to be a yoga therapist? Have you ever owned a yoga studio? Maybe even just wondered what it was like for the women and men up there in front of the room on their mats, leading you through endless Surya Namaskars, down dogs, and pranayamas galore? Well, these are their stories, and mine. I'm Rebecca Sebastian, a 20-year yoga teacher, 10-year yoga therapist, yoga studio owner, and co-founder of a yoga-focused nonprofit. I've done a lot in the yoga world over the last 20 years, pretty much everything except had a water cooler. You know, a place to share stories, talk about struggles, successes, and find other people who do the same thing that I do. Welcome to Working in Yoga, a podcast and substitute water cooler for yoga folks to connect and build community, to share our unique profession, our challenges, and our journeys with the world.
Hey friends, welcome to Working in Yoga. This week on the podcast is a surprise topic that came up in this creativity series: how we are creative and responsive to the relationships we have as yoga professionals. Mandy Henderly is my guest, and she and I cover all sorts of relationships that we have with yoga pros. The ones with our students, the ones with our clients, with our colleagues, our greater yoga community, and we even cover our relationships with ourselves. Now, burnout is one of those topics that has come up a lot over the last few years for us, but we often continue to overlook our own needs in the favor of the needs of our students and clients. And I'm going to, true confession here, say that I'm as guilty as anyone of this. So join me. Let's commit to being better to ourselves, starting now, and using that fresh New Year's energy to solidify the habit. Also, I need to tell you all about something I built for you that I think is really fun and kind of nerdy. I built a 2026 yoga industry trend forecast report for y'all. I have identified 6 trends that I'm seeing really come to the front of the class for the coming year, and 3 more minor trends that I think have traction, especially the last one on those minor trends, because as I reread it, I really do feel like this is going to be a major trend in 2026. And you can read and take stock of where we are as an industry. Look, nobody has done this for our industry yet, and there could be a whole host of reasons why that is, but I watch these things really closely, and I'm tired of the silence and gatekeeping that we're often met in the industry from the people who are in the know. Now, this is a paid offering. It's $27 for an 18-page report. And at the end, there are reflection questions for you to ask yourself and take stock of where you are professionally. Think of that less as a to-do list for 2026 and more of a where am I truly at and where do I want to be professionally in the next year. So head to the show notes, and for a limited time, you can bundle that 2026 industry trend report with the initial annual subscription to Inside Yoga Magazine for $40 for both. And that means that the renewal for Inside Yoga Magazine will be $20 for life. Now, once issue drops very soon, the founding member price goes away. So if you love a deal, this is going to be like the one time I do this for a very long time, so don't sleep. Okay, and speaking of sales, I just have to remind you, my friends at Offering Tree are running a holiday sale until December 15th. So also in the show notes, check the link for that to get more information. And I have to tell you, I love a tech sale because tech does not go on sale that often, y'all. And a holiday sale with it, honestly, this is checking a lot of boxes for me. So go check that sale out. Now, let's get into my conversation with Mandy Henderly. Hey friends, welcome to Working in Yoga. Okay, a creative conversation today with my new friend, Mandy Henderly. Manderly. Oh my goodness, Mandy, will you tell everybody who you are and what you do? And maybe we'll talk about like Gothic writing like later, but tell everybody who you are and what you do.
So my name's Mandy. I am a registered yoga teacher and yoga therapist, in like a yoga therapy intern is what people are saying. I am studying with Amy Wheeler at the optimal state and very close to being finished with the program. So I am working as a yoga therapist, and I'm always still kind of hesitant to claim that title because I'm not a CIAYT quite yet.
Okay. So what do you consider a yoga therapy intern?
um, I consider it to mean that I'm in progress
Okay.
and I'm completing my practicum hours.
I think a lot of people in the yoga industry space actually don't know how many hours yoga therapists have to put in order to get their certification.
Yeah,
So let's talk about creativity. And I want to kind of pull the thread of creativity, not only as yoga teachers, but also since you're still studying in yoga therapy, I'm curious, like, your feelings on how yoga therapists have sort of creative experiences within that realm. As like a new person in yoga therapy who's working on their practicum, do you find it to be a creative experience, like a co-creation with your clients?
absolutely. Yeah, it's really interesting to get to know somebody and to have them fill out their self-assessments. And then you, as a yoga therapist, are trying to put together all of these puzzle pieces to build this person a practice that will really serve them. And it goes so deep. Because we're able to pull in so many tools that you probably wouldn't be able to pull in a group yoga class, like
Yeah.
the finger nyasams and chanting and visualization. There's so many different ways that you can use these tools and layer these tools to create an effect.
So when you were a yoga teacher, like, did you find that to be an experience where you were sort of seeing things with your student? Like, how did that move from being a yoga teacher into a yoga therapist happen? And was there sort of like a creative journey in that process?
Mm. So, how it happened for me was I was a yoga instructor at a studio in the town where I live. And I was just I had a couple of my own classes, but then I filled in a lot as a sub. And I was just trying to hustle and do as many classes as I reasonably could and try to make a name for myself and show that I was a team player and maybe get to have some more opportunities to teach at like the popular times.
Yeah.
And it really wasn't working out great for me. It felt like such a struggle uphill. At the same time, I was in touch with a friend of mine who we studied together for our 300-hour program.
Hmm.
And we were engaged in this process called Vichara, which is like
Oh,
self-reflection.
yeah.
But the way that we learned in the program, which is Virabhava Yoga, shout out Virabhava Yoga. It's it's a collaborative process. It's co-creative. So we engage in vichara, and I can't see my own blind spots. So a person who I'm working with, they can see the blind spots that I can't. So Kara, my friend Kara, and I were doing vichara together, and she knew like what I was trying to do as a yoga teacher, and I was also trying to build this yoga business, which I didn't know it, but now I'm like, oh, I was always trying to do yoga therapy. I just didn't know it was yoga
Yeah.
therapy.
Yeah.
And she was doing some private mentoring with the teacher who taught our 300-hour program. Her name is Kelly Golden. And I think Kara sort of put in Kelly's ear that I was trying to build this yoga business. Kelly had these private clients that she wasn't going to be able to continue working with, and we live nearby each other. So she reached out to me to see if, hey, would you be interested in taking on these private clients? And I said, yes, I would. It After a few more conversations with her, I realized that the situation was a little bit different than just working with people doing a 60-minute private session at a yoga studio, which is something that I had done before. This was really one-on-one private yoga, ongoing with clients or their patients for the clinicians, patients of a psychiatry practice.
Yeah.
Um, and I was very intrigued by that. I met with the psychiatrist a few times, and she asked me to come aboard, and I was really excited. So that felt like a very seamless process,
Yeah.
because the opportunity found me. I wasn't really struggling for the opportunity to come along. I didn't really interview with the psychiatrist. It was more like a conversation like we're having right now. It just all felt really easeful.
Mm.
And after I decided to take on that job was when I started looking at some continuing ed. I was thinking that I was
Yeah.
just going to do like a 50-hour yoga, trauma informed yoga.
Yeah.
Um, but then once I started digging deeper, I saw yoga therapy and found Amy's program, which emphasizes yoga therapy for mental health. And I was like, that's what I want.
Yeah.
So being both a student and doing the work of a yoga therapist, I should just claim the title. Um,
I'm cheering in the background, y'all. I know you can't see me, but I'm cheering for her in the background. Yay!
um, being a yoga therapist and studying yoga therapy has been such a huge blessing in my life. And I'm really, really grateful to have found this path and for it to have found me at the right time too.
Okay, so working with a psychiatrist and then going in to be a yoga therapist. Okay. I actually have 1,000 questions about that, but I'm gonna narrow it down, I promise. So this idea, because psychiatry is a bit prescriptive, right? Like it's a Western medical model, like form of therapy. And yoga therapy, we sort of push that aside. How do you find, because I feel like this is a creative bridge that you would find between those two worlds as a yoga therapist working in and with like a psychiatrist.
She's amazing.
Yay.
Um, her name is Dr. Dimitrova, so shout out Dr. D. Um, she is so amazing. It is so important to her that her practice be an integrative practice. So for as long as she has had her private practice, she has always had yoga as a part of it.
Nice.
Her husband is actually a registered yoga teacher and a CIAYT.
Oh, wow.
And then he worked with her for several years doing the yoga therapy. When he was ready to fully retire, that's when they brought Kelly on board.
Okay.
And then when Kelly was ready to transition, that's when they found me. So they've always had yoga as a through
That's
line, which I think
amazing.
is so cool.
Yeah.
It's just really important to her. And when we have like monthly meetings, the monthly team meetings, and um, I try to really make sure that what I bring to the team is not stepping on anybody's toes. I'm not trying to be a psychiatrist. I'm not trying to be a psychotherapist either. My role is really there to be a complement to what they're doing.
Yeah. How how do you build that relationship in the beginning? Because that is a unique relationship. Because I think a lot of times, I know from experience and I know from stories from other people that folks who are in the Western medical world feel that they're going to take a weekend course, say, and do some of the work they do. And folks in the yoga world, conversely, feel like that everything that the medical world in the West is advising is, toxic and you're not supposed to do what they're doing. You're only doing like holistic wellness. So to me, it feels like that's a relationship that you have to build with trust over time. Did you find, because there was groundwork laid for you, but how did you find that adjustment to be? Do you find it easy to have one foot in both worlds, I guess is what I'm asking.
I think I find I'm more comfortable with it now for sure because I've been doing this for almost 2 years.
Sure.
When I first began, I was very deferential to Dr. D. Like I said, she's wonderful, and the therapist and the practice, they're also wonderful. And I was working with Kelly, who had been my teacher before, and she kind of helped transition me to this role. And for a while, I was just kind of doing what they told me to do.
Yeah.
And then I kind of was able to find my footing more with the aid of the optimal state.
Sure.
Having that foundation of learning with them really helped me to understand, like, oh, okay, this is how I can really do this. When I first started, there was only one client who was willing to start to work with me. She had been working with Kelly and she was willing to work with me. And I got some advice about being very boundaried with this person,
Mm-hmm.
which I totally take that point. And she and I hadn't built up our rapport. So when I put up that boundary, it really felt like a closed door to her
Yeah.
versus like a wall where we can both see each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so after that, that was when I was really like, okay, I have to be me here. Yes, I do need to have boundaries. I do need to see myself as more of a professional than how I saw myself as a group yoga instructor.
Sure.
But I still have to bring that element of myself. And if a hard boundary doesn't feel good, then yeah, like that's not what I'm going to do.
There is tension in that experience, right? Like, how do we bring, because this is like the story, we all know the story of yoga professionals. Mark Maron, the stand up comedian, has had a whole set about how yoga professionals are like sad and tell their whole
Yes.
life stories in the front. Like, we all know the stereotype, and it's a stereotype because it's real, because I've seen it happen. We've all seen it happen. How do we do that, Mandy? Like, how do we be ourselves? Because I do think there is a call for us to be truly authentic ourselves as we're like shepherding people in their journey, um, and also have boundaries. How do we do that?
Yeah, it's tricky and I'm still kind of figuring it out.
Yeah.
Um, I think that a really important piece of that is building the relationship and building the rapport so that you can place a boundary and have it not be hurtful.
Yeah.
Because if you're caring for the relationship and holding that like container,
Yeah.
um, then the other person is able to usually perceive the boundary with love and respect and not feel hurt.
Yeah. How do we do that in our classes? Like when you were a group yoga teacher, how did you approach that in your classes?
To be honest, I really didn't have an issue with boundaries, with boundary violations, anything like that in my classes.
Did you feel like you were able to bring yourself, excuse me, to the equation when you were teaching too?
Yeah, I did. I found it was actually a pretty important thing to do to bring myself to what I was teaching. Um, People that go to yoga classes or really any sort of group dynamic class, they want to feel like they're the teacher, the person leading them is a real human being and not a robot. So yeah, I would talk to people about what was going on with my kids, what was going on with my family, before or after class. Sometimes when I was really on my game and I was theming a class, I would also bring in a personal story, how that theme was showing up for me.
Yeah.
Um, I do think it's really important to build that relationship in both dynamics, the private yoga therapy and the group dynamic.
Because it's like a creative zhuzh, right? Like, for lack of a better term, I'm going to say zhuzh, right? Like, we do, you're right. I do the same thing. I bring myself, I bring my stories, I talk about my kids, I talk about, lessons that I've learned. But in my mind, it was always I could never bring anything fresh. So if I hadn't processed it, it's never going to land in front of a client or a student. That's mine. And then, like, so did you have anything you were telling yourself about, like, because I just do think there's like a little bit of a zhuzh, a creative zhuzh that we have to put on being ourselves, and then like versus trauma dumping to 14
Yes,
strangers.
absolutely. I really appreciate what you just said because I do think that there's an element of, and I even, this even still comes up for me doing yoga therapy, is leaving some things at the door. Like if I had a hard morning with my kids, or my husband and I had had an argument the night before and I still wasn't quite over it, like I did not want to bring that with me to the front of the room and start crying, or, and I feel that way with my yoga therapy clients too, is that this is for them. I don't want them to be trying to hold my feelings and my experience. I'm supposed to be there for them.
Yeah. Okay. Here's what, because I have heard stories over all of the years I've been in this business of people who have also said, well, I was in the room and, I just went through a breakup. Say, we'll make something up. Like, I just went in through a breakup and I taught what I needed that day and I cried and they cried and it was beautiful. And I'm like, that makes me uncomfortable. Like, you're making a face too. Like, there just has to be this sort of, I like that you used the word like wall where you can see each other. It's not that you're closing yourself off from your students, because I do think that the ability to sort of navigate this is a creative process. I think there is creativity in relationship building within our jobs. And so I kind of want to talk about that. I mean, are you just doing it through vibes? Is that what we're all doing? Is it just vibes? Quick exercise. Add up what you're paying for scheduling, your website, email marketing, and payment processing. For most studio owners, it's around $400 a month, sometimes more. Offering Tree starts at $100 a month for the full suite. And it's not just about saving money, friends. It's about having tools that actually work together instead of sort of duct taping 5 different platforms together. I've done that before. Oh my gosh, it's so much work. And until December 15th, you can get 20% off Pro and Studio annual plans using the link in the show notes. Take advantage of the sale while it lasts. Look, I am all about shopping small for the holidays, so don't sleep on this sale. And just for sport, will you do me a favor and do it while wearing your most festive holiday outfit? Okay, thanks.
I think that there's vibes there. Like I think we do have to be vibe readers.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
I think that's part of the job. And then I really like what you said about not bringing in something fresh.
Yeah.
Like, I have to sit with it for a while before I talk about it with somebody. Um, I'm going through something right now that I needed to share with my clients, and it's quite
Yeah.
personal, but I still needed to share it with them because it's going to affect how we work.
Yeah.
Um, but I waited a few weeks before I told anybody because I wanted to be able to talk about it in the right headspace
Yeah.
and not cry or get emotional. Um, and I think giving myself that time was really, really important. Uh,
Yeah.
and also being honest with them, not just disappearing for a few weeks and them not knowing what was going on, I think would have really damaged the relationship and the trust that we had built with each other.
Yeah, yes, because I do think there are moments that we don't have the opportunity to say, take enough space that I feel neutrally about something when I teach it. Because my job is always like, if I use an example from my life, I have to personally feel neutrally about it when I use it as an example in yoga teaching. Like I can't be worried about like that weird clenching in my, chest if I tell a story. But sometimes we don't have that opportunity to wait that long. Like sometimes things, first of all, are so big that like it might take me a hot minute to be neutral about it. And other times, and I'll use myself as an example again, I sold my studio earlier this year. I certainly had to tell people that I was closing long before my grief was finished. I mean, just the other day I drove by that place and I was like, I don't feel anything. And this has been, 6 months. Um, yeah. What how did we do that, man? How do we do that? How can we help other people do that? How can we help other people recognize when they need that time? What do we do? Tell us.
Ooh, I wish I had like a hard and fast rule. I think checking in with yourself and where you're at with your practice is probably number one. Are you taking time to care for yourself every day, even if it's 10 minutes? Are you taking that quiet time to be with yourself and digest your emotions? Um, and I think that going back to the earlier point about vichara, like I think having some sort of self-reflection practice is really important. It could be vichara. And what we did is we voice noted each other. We were not really live on the phone or live on Zoom. We were always voice noting. So whenever she had a break, she could record a voice note. Whenever I had a break, I could record a voice note. No pressure to get back to each other as soon as you could. But just building in that self-reflective time is so important. And also remembering that if you're speaking to a group yoga class, like it's yoga, it's not life or death. If something really huge happened, call your studio, let them
Yes.
know
Yeah.
I cannot teach a class today. They'll either cover it or they'll cancel it, and it's not life or death.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. We've got to talk about this. And I feel like I need to talk about this because I had what would probably be, if I'm being honest with you, which I am. We just met, but I'll be honest with you. Like, I had kind of a toxic attitude about that. Like, I always showed up, and I still. It's important to me, timeliness and all those things. It's important that I show up. But I will tell you this story. I think I've said it on the podcast once before. I was in labor with my daughter, and I showed up to my yoga class. And I really just should have called, and I should have just said, hey, I'm in active labor right now. I need to go to the hospital, but instead I felt like my obligation was to be to the student was to the students first. And I wasn't even, this is so ironic because I know I'm not alone in this. I wasn't even thinking about caring for myself. Like, not even, it didn't even cross my mind. So, diagnose me. No. like how can we set the stage for this sort of like caretaking of ourselves for 2026? How are we going to do that?
How are we going to set the stage for caretaking in 2026?
For ourselves.
For
Yeah.
self-care, yes. I think having a few non-negotiables every day is a good place to start.
Ooh, say more.
So I have a meditative therapeutic practice that my mentor gave me, and the full thing is lovely. It probably takes me about 20 minutes to a half an hour to do the full practice. So I kind of gave myself a 10-minute version of it too.
Yeah.
And that's my non-negotiable, is the 10-minute version. If I do more, if I do the 10-minute version in the morning and then later on I want to do a short evening practice, even if that evening practice is just legs up the wall for 5 minutes, that's like icing on the cake. But
Yeah.
that 10-minute chunk is like my non-negotiable yoga practice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, do you I think this is a challenge that we sometimes have. Do you ever get sick of yoga as also your self-care practice? Like, are there other things that are non-yoga things that you're doing for yourself?
Absolutely. Yeah, I've really gotten away from yoga for exercise.
Yeah.
So I swim laps,
Nice.
swimming, and I like to go, well, I don't really like to do it, but I know I have to do it. Lifting weights
Yeah.
is a part of my self-care now,
Yeah.
especially since I'm over 40 and
Same.
we
Same. I'm also lifting with you.
have to be worried about bone density. So swimming laps is huge. Lifting weights is big. I also just started. There's this like neural manifestation program that I jumped on recently, and I've been incorporating listening to their meditations while out on a walk. So, and sometimes I'll do, listen to one of their meditations while I have my first cup of coffee in the morning. So those three have been really nice.
What do we say to the yoga professionals out there listening, who know they should be doing this for themselves and aren't? Because I think that oftentimes we're dealing each other inadvertently, often shame and guilt about not doing for ourselves what we prophesize doing for our children,
Mhm.
our patients and clients and
Children
students.
too.
Yeah, children too. Children too, yes. Like, how can we deal with that? Because there's times in life I think what we just you just can't. I was in labor and I had a baby. You have a baby, you just can't for yourself. Or
Right.
there's other times, a switch in jobs, and this summer I moved houses and sold a business. There are times you just can't. How do we make sure that we aren't dealing ourselves shame and guilt in that experience too? Asking for a friend.
That's such a big question. I think taking a step back from your role as a yoga professional and just viewing yourself as a human is
Yes.
probably a good place to start, because I think it is so easy to say, like, well, who am I to tell people that this should be their practice when I'm not doing it?
Yep.
Um, But you would never say that to a friend. Like, I would never say that to you. I would never say that to Amy or my yoga therapy mentor that, like, hey, have you done your practice today? If not, then you can't talk to me about what I should do. Like, I would never do that. And um, we all just need to respect ourselves enough to talk to ourselves the same way we would a good friend or a teacher or
Yeah.
someone we care about.
I think that there is a bit of this like care and relationship experience that we have. There is creativity to that too. So in my mind, creativity involves problem solving skills, it involves building new things, seeing things in a different way. And I think sometimes like allowing yourself the opportunity to look at you differently than how we normally look at ourselves, with more generosity, with more love, compassion, and empathy, is really helpful. So I think the more that we can get public about saying like, hey, we have to give ourselves a break because there's so much burnout, there's so many things that we're not forgiving ourselves for being perfect, that aspect of perfect and perfectionism that we all sort of like sell to each other in this industry. Like if we can deconstruct that a little bit, I feel like it's better for everyone, you know?
Yeah.
Did you like, how did you do that for yourself?
I think a huge part of deconstructing perfection as a yoga professional for me has been trying to do this as a mom.
Yeah.
Um, because the reality of the situation when you're a mom is that life rarely goes perfectly.
Yes.
And the only way to survive it is to accept that things are imperfect.
Yeah.
And so if I'm able to accept things being imperfect as a mom, then that makes it easier for me to accept imperfection as a yoga therapist. Um, because I have this view of like, hey, we're not gonna always have like 60 quiet minutes to ourselves. Um, I am willing to, hopefully, my 10-minute morning practice will happen in the mornings, but there are times when I get to my kids' school early and I do my 10-minute practice while I'm in the car.
Yeah.
There are times that, like I did this last year before I went to a Christmas party. I was running too early. Like I would have been awkward if I had got there that early type of thing. And
Yeah.
I pulled into a CVS parking lot, laid my seat back and did a short yoga nidra. I think that if you're able to accept imperfection, that that can lend to you being more creative with your practice and being more flexible with your practice, and giving yourself that flexibility and creativity sometimes means that you're actually able to be more consistent with your practice than yeah.
No, dude, keep going, keep going. I don't want to interrupt.
If you waited for the perfect 60 minutes, no one's going to interrupt me. Yeah, that's not going to happen 9 times out of 10. So then are you just going to give up? Are you just going to not do your practice unless you have the perfect stage?
Yeah. I also think sometimes we adjust. We hand ourselves guilt because we feel like we need to adjust our lives for the yoga. And I'm like, yo, but the yoga's for us. Like it can adjust for like that's an inverse relationship. It's for us. It's for our lives and our benefit. I feel like what you said is so important. And also parents out there, like, y'all, we sit in cars a lot. Like I am also a parent. Like, I have one kid who's a driver. It's magical. He's in charge of his own agenda. But I have another child. She's 12, almost 13. And like, I'm driving her a lot of places. That 10-minute meditation in a car, mwah, chef's kiss.
Yeah, I mean, we can use that 10 minutes in the car to, and I'm as guilty as anybody else, we can use that 10 minutes in the car to scroll and stay in overstimulated mode,
Yep.
where we could use that 10 minutes in not even the whole 10 minutes. You might do just 3 minutes of some deep breaths, and then you can still have your time to scroll.
Yeah.
But just finding those little pockets throughout the day to go inward for a moment, slow down for a moment, that to me is how I can really stay connected to my practice, both as a yoga professional and as a parent.
Yeah. I think that's such good advice. I mean, that is really like the pinnacle of creativity, right? Is when you're figuring out how to adjust something that is as important to presumably our listeners, if they're listening to a podcast called Working in Yoga. Yoga is probably important to them. Like how we can adjust our expectations and how we practice for our lives. Because I do think, and you can agree with me or disagree with me, but from what I see, I do feel like we oftentimes feel the pressure to sort of show outward perfection in all things. Like our skin is clear, we have the right body type, our clothes are the right, like we have sort of this pressure to appear perfect, for lack of a better word, instead of giving ourselves grace that is really what yoga is teaching us to do.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Have you It's different in yoga teaching than in yoga therapy. Do you feel like, I feel like there's a different set of expectations in yoga therapy. Yoga therapists don't give a shit what pants you're wearing.
Right. Yeah. I rarely wear like yoga clothes when
Yeah.
I show up to yoga therapy. I did feel like I needed to be a little more poised when I was teaching yoga,
Yeah.
um, because, yeah, you're talking a lot. Even if you don't theme the class that day, you're still talking people through cues. You, there needs to be some sort of presence there that you are in control, not in control, that sounds really egoic, but like you're holding the room, you're
Yeah.
holding space.
That's the job.
So like walking around, trying to get off of your mat, it really requires like so much fine tuning and a lot of presence. And I did feel like I needed to have enough poise that if I made a mistake, I could either gloss right over it and keep going and um or make a joke lightheartedly. Yeah, I felt like there was a
Yeah.
little bit more performance.
I think, however, sometimes our clients and students find it refreshing when we have those days where we sort of roll up like we just parked the car, like we were in a car chase, and you've got 17 bags and 4 water vessels, and you're just like, I'm here. Let's go. Like, I think people find that refreshing every once in a while when we can show up that way, just as our human selves, like you said earlier.
Yeah, I think so too. I think people do find that refreshing because y yoga teachers are really there to sort of hang a lantern, like, this is what it could look like if you're on this path.
Yeah.
It's we don't have to show up perfectly poised. We don't have to um yes, we do want to hold the container and not be expecting people to hold us instead, but learning to hold both or balance
Yeah.
both.
Yeah.
It is refreshing for people, and they're like, okay, she's finding a way to do this. Maybe I could too.
Yeah. I just have to say, I love where this conversation went because I do think like relationship building and self-care are both creative acts,
Hmm.
innately creative acts. And you're the only person who's come on this podcast. Now I've got like 8, 9, 10 interviews for this whole series where we talked about self-care and creativity in relationship building, which I think is really important for us as an industry. So I want to say thank you. And I want to say, tell everybody where to find you if they want to come read your stuff.
Okay. I have a website. It's mandyhenderly.com. I also am on Instagram, and my handle there is Mandy Henderly Yoga on Instagram. And Rebecca, this is so crazy. I cannot remember my Substack. I just started a Substack like 2 months ago.
I
Um,
just looked it up. It's Mandy Henderly Yoga
on Substack.
on
Okay.
Substack. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah. And I try to write on there a couple times a month. I'm still trying to find my rhythm of, do I want it to be bi-monthly? Do I want it to be weekly? I'm still
Yeah.
trying to feel that out, but I have really enjoyed having more of a space where I could write about things long form.
Yes. Yes. We need more long form content in this world. So go subscribe to Mandy's Substack because we need more people who have more to say than 3 minutes allows.
Yes.
Thank you so much for this conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for this conversation, Mandy. Here are our key takeaways. First, creative application of yogic tools is really a great way to describe what yoga therapists do. We learn the tools and then we apply them to the individual in a non prescriptive sort of way, which is an inherently creative process. Next, creativity extends very much to transferring our skills in the job market. We have had other people like Shelley Ald and Julia Andrini talk about how our yoga skills do transfer to new and different markets. Even within this series, those two were on. This is also mentioned really heavily in my 2026 trend forecast for yoga pros. And I think we're really going to start to see a move towards skill transfers to other industries as an adjunct to the work that we're doing in the yoga space. Mandy does her work in a psychotherapy office, and there are lots of folks who have found work in music and education and nonprofits in the corporate sector. And as a reminder, the link to that full report is in the show notes. Next. Okay, relationships are ongoing. Mandy gave a great example of re-examining her relationship with a client to make sure that she was being herself in that relationship, as well as setting professional boundaries. This is difficult work, y'all. And yoga professionals are very often known for bringing like a little bit too much of ourselves to the table as we talk about yoga in relation to our own personal experiences. But this act of finding where you feel both comfortable and real and professional is a creative one and one that shifts over time. Honestly, this is the conversation I didn't know I needed on this series, but it is one that is so important to have. And finally, how do we set the stage for caring for ourselves in 2026? Burnout is a problem in our industry, and we need to talk way more about it. So let's start by taking Mandy's advice. What are our non-negotiables? Things that we do for ourselves daily or weekly that support our own care and nurturing. Now, I have to admit, this list for me is not robust enough. In 2026, I'm going to choose to not just randomly do things for myself when I think about it. I'm a pro at that, but make it a habit, something that I commit to doing, even in small doses, every single day. Okay, next week is the final episode on our creativity series. I have so enjoyed recording this series, and it is with my friend Erin Dottie, the host of Let's Talk Yoga, the podcast. She and I have been connected online for quite some time now. I just frankly adore her, and I was so excited to get her on the podcast to talk. I know you're going to love it. Until then, my friends, thank you so much for listening, and I will catch you around the water cooler next time.